It's Sunday lunchtime. I've just rewatched Wladimir Klitschko versus Tyson Fury. I've also watched the James DeGale Lucien Boutte fight. I need to rewatch that though, because by the time that came on in the morning, I was pretty hammered. So in order to put some logical thoughts, we'll cover that at a later date, maybe later this evening or tomorrow. But anyway, I've rewatched the Tyson Fury fight against Wladimir Klitschko. Now, I did do some initial thoughts last night after the fight. However, I kind of looked back at it this morning and wanted to go over them again. I think there were a few things that I wanted to touch on in different detail and a few sort of additional points to go over. I had friends around watching the fight last night. I had my best mate and my brother around, and yeah, I think in many ways watching it with three people kind of stopped me from seeing certain things in the fight that I saw differently when I rewatched it, because it's fair to say that both of the other guys I was watching with had the fight a lot closer than I did. You know, they were thinking it was pretty even and, you know, really could go either way, whereas I saw it as a fairly dominant performance from Fury. And I think their sort of slight negativity towards Tyson Fury in the fight kind of tempered my enthusiasm somewhat. So I wanted to go back and re-watch it and, you know, see what I thought second time round, so to speak. So I've done that this morning. I've done it with a sober head, whereas last night, yeah, there was a fair few jars being sunk, I guess you could say. So anyway, I've re-watched the fight, and I think having watched it a second time, I feel that this is an even more clear victory and an even more dominant performance from Tyson Fury than I did first time round. So I made a few little notes of different things that I wanted to speak about. But the main theme here, and I did allude to this in my initial video, but the main theme here is Klitschko's complete lack of adjustment. And I've talked about this in all my videos, how I thought that Klitschko had a game A, an A plan, and that was it, whereas Tyson had plans B, C and D. But Tyson Fury was able to completely negate Wladimir Klitschko's game. You know, Wladimir Klitschko's game is jab, right cross, check left hook, hold. That's his game. And Tyson Fury was able to take away all those things. He was bigger than Vlad, and let me say, the size difference was a bit more pronounced in the fight than you would have expected it to be, having seen the weigh-in, the press conference, etc. You know, there were some people online saying Wladimir Klitschko was wearing, I don't know, powerlifting shoes or something to make himself look a bit taller. But I'll tell you what, when I watched these guys last night, I thought Tyson Fury looked substantially the bigger man, both in height, but also in sort of frame. You know, he just looked like a thicker, stronger individual, which surprised me to an extent. Wladimir looked a bit leaner than Fury in there. Obviously, Fury had the longer reach, but basically, due to his size, he was completely able to take away the jab and the hold technique of Wladimir Klitschko, the jab and grab. Now, it's more complicated actually than saying it was just his size, but it was the combination of size with what else he brought to the table. You know, Wladimir Klitschko's fought other big men before. He fought Mariusz Wok, for example, but Wok couldn't take away the Klitschko A game. And the reason Fury was that size combined with his reflexes, combined with his movement. And when I say movement, I mean his foot movement, I mean his upper body movement, I mean his head movement. Yeah, all of those things meant that he was able to just stay out of range, and he judged distance brilliantly in this fight, Tyson Fury. It was a fantastic performance in terms of judging the distance, and hardcore boxing fans who watch a lot of boxing will know what I mean when I say that. And I think Wladimir Klitschko himself actually referred to that in the press conference, that he couldn't get his distance right. And for fighters who rely on a straight 1-2 from the outside, distance is such a key thing. It's such a key thing. You know, Wladimir Klitschko, if you watch this fight, you'll notice Wladimir Klitschko's stance was actually quite a bit wider than Tyson Fury's at times, even though Tyson Fury has got the perhaps the longer legs. Now, for me, what that meant is that because Fury's legs were slightly closer together, he was able to make more dynamic adjustments in terms of his foot movement. You know, he was able to go back and forth. He was able to sort of wheel around on his feet. Whereas because Wladimir Klitschko's legs were so far apart and his stance was wide, I kind of saw him more shuffling towards his opponent. His movement wasn't overly athletic. It was kind of a robotic, shuffling forward movement. And I think that's relevant because another guy with an extremely wide stance is Deontay Wilder, who Tyson Fury may well fight next year. And I just feel that, with Tyson Fury's footwork being more sort of dynamic and with his legs being closer together, that gives him a real advantage in terms of the movement. But his reflexes in this fight were really superb, and his head movement was tricky, his upper body movement, how he was leaning in, was tricky, the way he was ducking, the way he was bending at the waist. What that created is inaccuracy with the Klitschko jab. And Klitschko was an incredibly cautious fighter in the ring last night. Really cautious, really anxious, quite nervous. And he didn't want to keep throwing an inaccurate jab because he was concerned, in my eyes, that an inaccurate jab means that he was going to get counterpunched. So what this really did is negated the Klitschko jab. And as we know, one of the biggest Klitschko records is the straight right. But typically he throws it off the jab. He doesn't tend to lead with it as much. He doesn't just throw it on the random in a combination. It's usually the straight 1-2. And the fact that Tyson took away the jab, took away Klitschko's measuring stick, and took away his sort of basis for throwing that big right hand, if that makes sense. I think he was too scared of being countered, and he couldn't measure the distance. And that measuring the distance was the combination of the size, with the movement, with the reflexes. I thought it was superb stuff from Tyson Fury. When the fight got up close, Wladimir couldn't dominate in the hold, like we've seen him do against Povetkin or Jennings. Fury was given as good as he got. And even though this was more of an outside chess fight, I've often talked about Fury's inside game. There wasn't too much inside fighting in this fight. I thought Fury would look to do more of that, actually. But I guess why change a winning formula? And he was winning the first rounds easily on the outside, so there was no need to bring that into play. But on the inside, Fury was doing some decent work to the body, I must say. You could see Wladimir Klitschko on his side get reddening from Fury's punches, and I just felt that Fury was getting slightly better when Wladimir was trying to hold, and Fury was getting better from the outside. And there wasn't any other game plan from Klitschko. There really wasn't. I thought the corner work from Jonathan Banks was vastly inferior to the corner work from Peter Fury. Peter Fury was giving real calm, concise instructions, and that's what Tyson needed in this fight. You could see him getting very hyped up before the start, making faces at Vlad, talking to Vlad. He was really pumped up, and for me, Peter Fury was a real calming influence. I think I wrote down a quote that he said. He kept telling Tyson Fury, when he switches stances, it's going to be awkward. He goes, it's really going to put Wladimir Klitschko back into his box. And, you could kind of see that at work. Whereas for me, Jonathan Banks, halfway through the fight, I heard him telling Klitschko to start punching to the body. Was that really the right advice at that time? Wladimir Klitschko hasn't thrown a body punch for 10 years. We all know this in the ring. So, I thought it was a very, very complete performance from Tyson Fury. I really do. And, looking at other comparators in the heavyweight division, there's been a lot of people who've come out straight away and said that Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua may be able to take Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder's performed at a higher level than Anthony Joshua. But looking at Anthony Joshua so far, he has not performed against anyone who can move like Tyson Fury moved last night. Joshua is a fighter who is extremely reliant on range from what I've seen so far. He is a fighter who likes to stand in front of an opponent with their back to the ropes at 3/4 range, with them taking the straight 1-2. Almost Klitschko-esque in that sense. Tyson Fury, with him bobbing and weaving and ducking, and switching stances, there is no way of saying at this point that Anthony Joshua will pass that test. We've not seen anything from him at a level. Beating Gary Cornish, beating Kevin Johnson, it's not beating Tyson Fury. It's a huge step up for Anthony Joshua at this stage. So, I thought what we saw in this fight from Tyson Fury was a masterpiece of technical, defensively minded boxing. I thought his defensive discipline in this fight was superb. Could anyone have predicted that Wladimir Klitschko would have landed that fewer jabs? Could anyone have predicted that Wladimir Klitschko would have landed that fewer right hands or that fewer check left hooks? This was a very, very disciplined performance from Fury. He didn't need to, take punches. He was extremely defensively minded, and he was defensively minded even though his hands were down by his waist sometimes. He was really doing very advanced, subtle defensive technique here. He really was. People need to give Tyson Fury a credit. This is a great, great performance. And I remember when people were saying that David Price would beat Tyson Fury, would destroy him. Tyson Fury wouldn't be able to last a round with David Price. This guy's put a lot of people wrong, put a lot of doubters, and it surprises me that even after that chat about Tyson Fury, David Price, even after the chat about Tyson Fury, Wladimir Klitschko, there's now a group of people one day into the fight saying, Anthony Joshua would beat him. There is nothing out there to say that Anthony Joshua punches as hard as Wladimir Klitschko. Wladimir Klitschko is the far more proven technician and the far more proven puncher than Anthony Joshua. He's done it at a much, much higher level than Anthony Joshua. And, Tyson Fury not only went 12 rounds with Klitschko, but he beat him soundly. It's a lot of step up for Anthony Joshua before he get there. I just felt that Tyson Fury made Wladimir nervous here. All the stuff about the ring, the canvas, the gloves, those were all signs to me that Wladimir Klitschko was trying to get an advantage. He perhaps perceived he needed to do something differently to get the better of Tyson Fury. And whether that was true or not, who knows? But Wladimir definitely looked nervous in the ring. He didn't want to be knocked out. He didn't want to throw and miss and leave himself exposed. But sometimes you saw him throw the jab and then lean in to throw the right hand, but kind of pull it and just not throw it because he didn't trust himself to land it accurately. And he didn't want to leave Tyson there to counter. I've talked about Tyson Fury putting in a very, very strong technical defensive performance. What we didn't necessarily see in this fight, and this is why I believe there's still so much more to Tyson Fury, is Tyson Fury's complete offensive arsenal. Tyson Fury is a world-class inside fighter for heavyweight. Didn't see that last night. Tyson Fury throws excellent combinations, especially with uppercuts, sometimes a hook into an uppercut. We didn't see that last night. We saw some good jabbing, we saw some good 1-2s, we saw actually a pretty nice check left hook, lead left hook from Tyson Fury. Almost a sort of Klitschko-esque punch, if that makes sense. But there's so much more offensively, to come from Tyson Fury. Mark my words on that. So I think it gets better and better and better. With Wladimir Klitschko supposedly wanting the rematch, and we'll see if that happens. I'm slightly dubious as to whether it will. As I said before in my previous video, the only undefeated fighter out there really is Father Time. Now, I'm not saying Tyson Fury won this fight because Klitschko got old. On the contrary, what I am saying is Klitschko's in the autumn of his career. He's nearly 40 years old. He's just taken quite a heavy loss. Look after the fight. Tyson Fury's face was relatively normal. Wladimir Klitschko was bloody, bruised, black-eyed, cuts. He'd been in a hard fight. It's now going to be 6 months, 9 months before a rematch gets on, or something of that nature. At this stage, Wladimir being another 6 months older, that's a negative for him. Tyson Fury's going to have the confidence of a world champion. He's going to know he's good for the job. Who knows if Klitschko's even going to be able to secure his home advantage. Next time Tyson Fury may be choosing the ring canvas, maybe choosing the gloves. Klitschko's such a control freak. Let's see how he likes it when someone else is the champion. So, for me, I'd make Tyson Fury even more of a favourite in a rematch. Just a few other bits. For a start, the point deduction I should touch on briefly. That was a valid point deduction. I thought that was very poor from Tyson Fury. Very poor. It was a needless punch. He had Klitschko hurt nicely at that point. He threw 2 nice lead left hooks, caught Klitschko both times, wobbled Klitschko. I was livid that he threw that punch to the back of the head. You could say it was harsh because it was a bit of a nothing punch, but he'd been warned several times, and that not only cost him a point, it also gave Wladimir Klitschko very, very valuable time to recover. That was a one moment in a fight where he was very, very disciplined to my liking, that he let himself down ever so slightly, because that gave the judges, not that the judges put in a very fair scorecards, you know, very, very fair. I've got no gripes with the scorecards, but we know what it's like going out to Germany. That point deduction gave the judges an excuse, if there was to be fun and games, you know, to possibly rob Tyson Fury there. So I thought that was poor, needless. You know, if you're going to lose a point, at least hit the guy properly. You know, and that disappointed me. But what we saw here, I've never seen anyone clown with Wladimir Klitschko like that. You know, hands behind his back, switching in and out of stances. I mean, funnily enough, the way I viewed the stance thing, I thought, my personal opinion is Fury was a much better fighter in orthodox. He offered a lot more, but him fighting at southpaw, I thought disconcerted Wladimir Klitschko more. You know, I really did. I felt that Wladimir Klitschko's output dropped considerably when Tyson Fury moved to southpaw. And I thought Wladimir became even more inaccurate when Tyson moved to southpaw. I just feel that Tyson's offence is better out of orthodox myself. And speaking of offence, you know, there was some good bits there. You know, I know I've said this is a defensive performance and there's more to come offensively, but some of the punches to the body, some of that, he did a straight right to the body a few times that I thought was really, really, really decent from Tyson Fury. And obviously this is a career high performance from Fury. You know, he showed so many elements to being a complete fighter last night. You know, the hand speed, the head movement, the footwork, switching stances. It goes on. It goes on. There's a lot more to come. I think it's an extremely exciting time for the heavyweight division. You know, David Haye, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. There are some mega fights to come for Tyson Fury, and I, for one, cannot wait for the ride. As I say, I'm still slightly dubious as to whether there will be a rematch. Obviously, Wladimir Klitschko, still a world-class operator. You know, that power he had and still has will be a threat in any fight he's ever in. Tyson Fury winning a rematch is by no means a done deal. But based on what I saw last night, I think Tyson Fury's just got the beating of Wladimir Klitschko. I think style-wise, Tyson Fury correctly stated he is a nightmare for Wladimir. You know, he puts Wladimir all out of his comfort zone. And when Vladimir's out of his comfort zone, with Jonathan Banks in the corner, there just isn't a plan B. And for me, that is the difference between a Class A fighter and, you know, not saying Wladimir Klitschko is not a Class A fighter, but that's the difference between Tyson Fury and Wladimir Klitschko. Let me know your thoughts on this fight. Many thanks for watching. Appreciate everyone who's tuned in to all the videos along the way. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this, please give me the thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching.